open to new experiences and new people. When I was here, my group of friends, we call ourselves the politically correct posse because it's like the black person, the Indian person, the white person. I mean, like, it's like so politically correct. Like, we should be our French book was very politically correct too, so we should be the French book. But just be open to new experiences and to new friends, and I think I just pride myself on just being an open person to anyone and everybody.
I'd have to agree with Nicole. Talk with your parents and your grandparents. My father and Mrs. Seigenthaler are very, very good friends, and I think sometimes now that I'm part of their generation, because my mother passed away a couple of years ago, so I've spent a lot of time in the last 3 or 4 years with my father, and I have learned so many things that I didn't know about my dad and growing up and the things that my father experienced. And sometimes he'll be sitting and talking, and he'll say, "You remember that in 1930 something?" I'm like, "I wasn't here." So I think making sure that you understand your family history, I think that's very important. I think grandparents and family friends are often, you're around them every day and you take it for granted. I learned a lot, and I'm still learning a lot from my father. We're doing an oral history of his life, and it has been a very eye-opening experience for me, that the things that I didn't even know as a child growing up, some of the things that he was going through in his young career as a women's track coach. So at Tennessee State University, and a lot of people ask, well, why did you leave St. Cecilia and go to Tennessee State University? I grew up on that campus as a child, so there was no place else I wanted to go to undergraduate school but there. And my parents are graduates of Tennessee State University, and I knew Nicole's grandfather. Didn't know at the time until I just met her here today that was her grandfather. So it's always a small world. But I do think if you will broaden your horizon, sometimes go someplace that you're not comfortable. I remember in my class we had a classmate of mine who was Jewish. We went to the synagogue. We spent some time learning about the Jewish faith. That was the first time I'd ever been in a synagogue in my life. So, broaden your horizons not only racially but in other areas. Get outside your comfort zone. We do it every day.
I listened to Edwina talk about how much she's learned from the kid, from talking, and how it's possible to learn from people who are older. And I'd like to turn that for a moment and tell a story about my grandson. I opened with one, and this one's not so fun. Jack's 14, but when he was 5 years old, we would go up on holidays to Connecticut to visit with him. And it was my great pleasure and duty to read to him in the evening. And it was up Thanksgiving, the year he was 5, and I went up to read to him that night, and my son, he could be very stern, came in and said, "Dad, long day today. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving, long day tomorrow. Read one story tonight. Jack, Gran's going to read you one story tonight. Do you two have that down? One story, he's going to read one story." "Yes, Dad, yes, son." So it's a chapter in Harry Potter. And I read it, and I finish it, and Jack says, "Gran, Dad said you could read me one story, but you could also tell me a story." "That wouldn't be reading me a story, you could tell me a story." I said, "Okay, Jack, I'll tell you a story, but it has to be quick. I don't want your father up here on my back. It has to be quick. And what would you like for me to tell you a story about?" He said, "Well, Mom and Dad and I were watching television. And there was an old film on television television about the Freedom Riders. And there was a bald-headed man who played your role. And he tried to help the Freedom Riders, and he got hurt. And I want you to tell me about it. I asked Mom and Dad, and they said for me to ask you. And I said, well, it is a quick story. And it's a story of a happy ending. One day in Montgomery, Alabama, there was a mob of mean, angry white people who did not want black people to ride the bus. And there were a group of attractive young black people. And they did ride the bus. And when they got off the bus, the mean, angry, hostile white people beat them up and put them in the hospital. And I tried to help two of them, and they beat me up and put me in the hospital. But Jack, it's a happy story. It had a happy ending. We all came out of the hospital.